what is making headlines in the local dailies here in the country. Now, before we look at that, I just want to introduce two of my panelists who are already here, and I'm joined by Wakili Steve Mbuga. Very good morning to you, Wakili.
Very good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. A pleasure to have you this morning.
I'm also happy, and I want to say hi and salute all Kenyans out there, especially the candidates who are starting their now general exams today. I wish them a very success, and I want to remember especially a school that I used to school, it's called Motoini High School in Dagoretti South, as my former school, and I wish them very success too.
Thank you very much. Also joining me is Mr. Odoyo Widi. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother.
It's been a minute.
I can't complain. I'm good.
We thank the Lord. Well, now, gentlemen, I want us to begin with, there's a story on the front page of this Standard, and they say insecurity storm. Kenya human rights record faces intense scrutiny as both citizens and international allies sound alarms over surge in abductions, enforced disappearances and killings. The West is pressuring Kenya to uphold democratic principles and protect civil liberties amidst mounting tension and calls for accountability from rights groups and diplomats alike. Now, I don't know whether we should start there, because this as well forms the basis of our conversation this particular morning in regards to matters enforced disappearances. But a story that is related to that, a story on page 4. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was on this spot a few weeks ago after two Turkish citizens who are refugees were deported back to their country. These are guys who fled from their country because of threats to their lives. But the government was on the spot, especially Foreign Affairs PS Korea Simoe, for deporting them back and putting their lives at risk. Now, from where you sit, Wakili, I don't know what you make of that, especially in regards to the Refugee Act of, I believe, is it 2021?
I think what I would like to mention about that
Matter is that Kenya is part of has international commitments. And one of the international commitments is some of the conventions that we have assented to and ratified as part of domestic laws. And when we talk about refugee law, especially returning a refugee when they have sought their lives is in danger, clearly that is against the human rights, international human rights, especially one of we call them jus cogens, that these are internationally accepted norms that when a refugee has sought their lives is in danger or in their fear of persecution, you cannot return them at the frontier. When they have at your border point, you cannot send them back to a country where they are fearing persecution. And in this case, when the government of Kenya sends back individuals back to their country where they have fled because of political reasons or fear of persecution, then automatically it goes contrary to our commitment in international law. It goes contrary to our commitment when it comes to human rights, because that is a fundamental human right. And we have been captured in a number of treaties which we have signed, from the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. We have commitments in the African Charter on Human Rights, Human and People's Rights. So many conventions, even our Kenyan law, the Refugee Act, which prohibits the government of Kenya sending back anyone who has sought refuge and they are in fear of real fear of persecution, and which can be, and therefore sending them back may put their lives in danger.
Fair enough. Mr. Odoyo Widi, what do you make of that? Because when you flee your country because there are threats to your life, and you are deported back from the country that you fled to, back to your country, which, in the first place you fled because you felt like, there were threats to your life. I mean,
of course, I believe refugees deserve their new abode. They deserve their new homes. I am not very fully seized of the matter and the reasons for which these Turkish gentlemen were returned to their country. I would like to take the government position on it, but I still really don't have it. It's a story I think I saw a week or two ago. It didn't capture much of my attention, but I believe in Kenya we should accept refugees as we have always done. Actually, Kenya is one of those countries in Africa that takes very many refugees. The position that was taken by this, there were 2 or 3. There were 2. I am not sure, because we have had situations where criminals also have come in as refugees, political asylum has also come. So I really did not take much interest in that story.
Fair enough. Those are not the only ones, because there are several other people who've been deported back or either abducted here in the country where they were seeking asylum. And they've mentioned there's a gentleman, Abdullah Ocalan, Selahaddin Gulen, Namdi Kanu of Nigeria, Samson Tekle Michael, Maurice Mabio, Awijok Bak, who they say was abducted here in the country, and is a Sudanese citizen who fled South Sudan and was abducted on February 4th, 2024. His whereabouts remain unknown up to now. There's also the case of Ashad Sharif, the Pakistani journalist who was shot dead by police along Magadi Road some time back.
I think the government is not in the business of abductions. I hear this abduction repeatedly. I know, and you too know, that when a lie is repeated multiple times, people begin to believe it is the truth. I don't think when the police arrests you against your will when you have committed a crime, it is an abduction. The government is never in the business of abductions, and no criminal accepts to be arrested, and the arrest must be by force. And when you turn all by forceful arrests abduction, I think we are getting it wrong as a country. And when people are abducted, truly abducted, those are criminals, those are not policemen, those are not state agents. And when people just come blanket and say, yo, these people are abducted, these people are abducted, if the government is not in the business of abduction, we cannot say anybody who is abducted, that is the state, that is the government. We recently saw a situation where a very honorable citizen of this country from Siaya was abducted, and a few days later we found the man was killed and his car abandoned. And later we found out the whole thing was by criminals, and the criminals, the government is on the tail of those criminals. Some have already died, and you can see all those criminals. None of them was willing to be arrested, and I never saw anybody calling those ones abductions. So we have to distinguish clearly between arrests and abduction, but there is never any peaceful arrest to criminals.
Okay, fair enough. Wakili, there's a concern about the rising cases of femicide here in the country. What is happening from where you sit?
I think we cannot ignore the role of the government in all this. And I say this because the government is a principal duty bearer. And therefore, they have a duty to provide security. They have a duty to provide security towards property and persons. And when we see Kenyans or even other nationals who have sought refuge in this country, or they have come to visit this country, disappear or get killed, the first person we hold account to is the government, because we pay taxes every day so that we can meet their day-to-day expenses to manage and protect the citizens. So when we see that a number of Kenyans, especially the case we have been seeing on femicides, which has really gone high, and there is a serious issue, and I think that cuts across both security issues and also moral aspect of it, because it is an issue that even us as individuals, we're also responsible in ensuring that doesn't happen. But where some of these incidences are instigated by gangs, or even some of them are officers of the state, then we expect some actions to be moving on and some heads to be rolling, especially on investigations and quick investigations and quick arrests if persons are involved, if whether they are officers or they are just Kenyan citizens who have committed those heinous actions. And therefore, what we expect is to see some heads rolling, quick actions, and raising more awareness, especially on reporting mechanisms and response. Because especially for femicide, which are sometimes domestic, which is now escalate to deaths, or some relationship which turns sour, I think the main thing we need to do is to increase awareness, especially on response and actions after.
Fair enough. On Mr. Odoyo Widi, the president, Wakili has just said what President William Ruto said yesterday. There's the issue, there's the criminal aspect of it. And perpetrators need to be brought to book. And also there's what Wakili has said, the moral issue. How do we deal with the two?
First of all, I once said from this desk that the government cannot provide a bodyguard for every citizen. In this country, there are only two sets of people who can be assaulted or murdered or anything. It's either male or a female. And when we choose to highlight 8 females that have been killed in the last few months or few weeks. Yet, against them, there could be hundreds of men who are also killed. So let's just say there's upsurge in crime in the country, and the government is doing everything it can do about it. But you see, when people want to demonize a government, they will fish for everything negative that happens in the reign of that government at any given time. I have watched the way the so-called femicides have taken place. You find a lady has been lured into some Airbnb somewhere and have been murdered, and they return and want to blame the government for that as well. That has been done by a criminal, and that has been done by a lady who has not taken her security properly. Take, for example, I can see on the face today of one Aoko. Aoko has besmirched exactly every politician in this country. And when you find him near the border of Kenya with Tanzania and you want to come and blame the government when she has besmirched individuals, very many of them, very powerful people, people who even have supporters who will even act without any instructions, I think we are blaming the government for far too many things.
Don't you think
Yes.
we are infringing on the freedom of expression? Anybody can express themselves the way they want without, condemnation or anything.
My brother.
But before you continue, just allow me to introduce Honorable CPA Julius Ruto. Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How is Kesas?
Yes, we are doing well. Only I've come late.
No problem.
Kesses is far, but I'm here.
I do understand Kesas is far.
Yes.
I believe farmers, I understand farmers in those parts of the country harvesting at the moment.
We are doing the harvest. However, also we are blessed with abundant rains, which is not normal like it used to be. Probably this is an indication that next year, as we are told by forecast, there might be the opposite of this one. We don't know, but we are happy. We are now doing the harvest. Now the challenge is the market. So we are in that. It's a normal challenge you always get, but we are going to get through.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just drop you in. There's the issue of femicide in the country, and the two gentlemen were talking about it, and the president spoke about it yesterday, and he said his government is going to address this particular issue.
Probably I would pick from what you've just raised, asking my brother here, the aspect of freedom of expression. I think Joe, and you and everybody here, we're all aware that there's this attitude called responsibility. In everything you do to the limit of your responsibility. That you can express yourself in any manner, in any way, but it should not go to an extent of going to personal life of a person, injuring someone's feelings, injuring someone's personality, to the level that you as a person that you want to express yourself, there is a limit of responsibility, though it may not be divine, but the limit should be reasonable. It should be a way that is carrying an objective attitude or an intention. On the aspect of issues of femicide and what is now currently being reported, of course, I should start by moving my message of console to families who have lost their loved ones. Even at this moment, as we are talking about all this, we know there are families who are hurt that they have lost their children. It is so painful. Without adding much to what my colleagues have said, but I only want to pick up on one issue, the issue of family fabric. I think before the era we are now, some of us, we were privileged to have grown in households of our families who are tough, they were showing us directions, they could guide us, they could talk to us. Probably I would wish to reiterate that it is time also we need to preach and sensitize the values of families. Because the current child of this generation who has enjoyed this level of freedom right from when the child is growing, being nurtured, some of them by virtue of the commitment of their parents, they were handed over to other people, especially through school. Some of them went through boarding. They never had that close motherly, fatherly association. So some of these children end up looking for consoles through other friends, even when they grow big. And even at that time, they're in school, they're in college. You can tell the child who is in college now, if you look at them physically, they are still very young. I mean, they are yet to develop well, to understand how to manage the environment they are growing in. So it is an issue that I would want to put it that it is whole involving. Other than the security that has been discussed here, which is a function or a responsibility of an individual to ensure at any given time the environment you are in should be as secure as possible. Again, the other issue is what pushes our children, especially our young girls, to these scenarios that they find themselves in between. The issue is I need to call upon us as families, let's still have time to talk to our children. Even those in school always learn to engage them, reach out to them, find out how they are doing, at times visit them, ask them, create an environment they could come home. Some of them are going through depression because of the lack of necessities, and they are being lured. I mean, the vulnerability they are in, they are being lured to these particular conditions. And those who are taking advantage is a mix of issues. Some says on the corridors, some of these things are ritual practices. Some of the guys, they come around are foreigners, which again, it means we need to be keen on our foreign policy to know who are our friends, who are always in our country at any given time. Okay. Some of these girls, especially those who are being killed through come together, in the evenings, they are taken out, they are taken to Airbnbs, private parties. Some of these things are being done with an intention. Some people are being pushed by ritual beliefs that if you're able to have a human organ, kill somebody, they are being lured to believe that by doing so, they are going to earn some favors in their society. So I think it's a mix of issues that we as Kenyans, it's time we have to speak about this. Let us sensitize, let us not ignore. Get to know with your friend. Anyway, I have limits. In everything you do, we always, even the Bible talks of self-control. I mean, develop an attitude of self-control as a virtue as a person. And not only girls alone, even boys. Nowadays, boys are being sodomized. On the aspect of vulnerability, some guys are promising them opportunities. Some guys, they are men, but then they take them through a lot of issues that they end up getting traumatized. They lose hope. They kill themselves also out of when they find themselves what they have been subjected to out of vulnerability. So we have a society that is not balanced. We have a society that has been so selfish. We have a society that has been so individualistic. And like earlier times where even a parent is a parent, even an age mate of your parent would correct you. Nowadays, somebody cannot correct your child. Immediately somebody points a finger at your child, you see how the parent is going to react. The following day, cases. Following day, issues in the society, chief. So nobody now cares about your child. So somebody would say a child, going through challenges, and nobody would want to dare correct that child.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, even as, Honorable Ruto raises very, very key concerns, because that is indeed true, that sometime back, anybody would be able to call out a child and tell them this is not right, and the parent would agree, and things will move smoothly. But as we speak at the moment, it is very, very difficult for someone to even try and correct or point an accusing finger at another person's child. But that is one aspect. There's the aspect of some of the people have been found to commit these crimes. For example, the gentleman accused of killing the main suspect in the murders of the 3 women in Eastleigh is someone who has past criminal record. How does that paint our criminal justice system?
That's why I think I said in the initial of this conversation that the major or the principal duty bearer is the state when it comes to some of these matters, because no matter how much we may want to talk about the ladies or the victims who have fell into the traps of these people, we also need to address the criminals themselves, those who are doing this heinous act, because by the time the girl is agreeing to meet this gentleman or to hang out with this boyfriend in this particular Airbnb, it is not a ticket or a guarantee that they should be their life should be taken away. So when we have people who have been doing these heinous acts and they are known and they are in our country, I think as we address the morality, which my colleagues have talked about, then we also need to address the issue of criminality, in that we need to fund well our investigative units. They need to act fast. They need to act quite promptly, especially on response. And also, these persons who are known, they need to be taken action for, because when they're out there roaming around and we know someone was involved in the murder of, we have had so many girls being killed in very, very, very unexplained circumstances, and there are people who are close to them and they are known. They should be behind bars. So I think that raises a lot of concerns, especially on our criminal justice system, and that is a duty now that falls in the whole entirety, the whole system, from the investigating officer all the way to the judiciary.
Okay, fair enough. Honorable Doyo, coming back to you, you have been very vocal in terms of people should not blame the government for whatever happens to anybody. And in fact, you say the government cannot provide a bodyguard for everybody in this country. But like Wakili says, the buck stops with the government. They are the custodian of the safety of each and every citizen. Now, let's talk about these agencies, the investigative agencies and those that are supposed to ensure that justice is served. Some of these cases are dragged for so long that the victims and the families of the victims feel like, you know, justice is not being served. And they say justice delayed is justice denied. For example, the issue of the murder of Scarlett Wahoo, which happened a few months ago. The murder of Rita Waini. We are still yet to see that the main suspects are you know, brought to book. Would you term that as probably a failure or shortcoming in the field of those investigative agencies?
I think some investigations I have watched, even in first world countries like the United States, some have even taken years to actually bring the culprits to book. There are even cases where the investigators even get the wrong people, and in the end they finally get the correct people many, many years later. There are certain crimes that are committed after a lot of planning, where a lady is lured, the whole thing is done knowing that investigations will take place. And it's very difficult for the investigative agencies to really find who did it, because some of these crimes are committed by people who are very close to their victims. Some are lovers, some are close relatives, some are people who know them and nobody would suspect anything. And some also commit crimes and disappear from the face of the earth. But yesterday, I was at a station discussing something, and somebody sent to me a message that where we also went wrong in the very first place was when you are setting up this new 2010 constitution, when we put bail for people who commit capital offenses when they are properly planned. You know, it is good to give people charged with manslaughter and such offenses bond. But somebody who has bought a panga, sharpened the panga, planned for days, went to somebody's house and destroyed them using the panga, and you walk to court and give them cash bail, and he even knows that this carries very serious charges. It makes committing crimes a very easy thing because they know they can take long with the case. So I think as we think of revisiting our constitution, one of the lines we need to revisit is giving automatic bail to people who have committed capital offenses, because it gives them the opportunity to rearrange their lives, to bribe in the way, or even to disappear altogether, or even to continue with committing other crimes. So, but when those days when people with capital offenses used to remain in custody until the case is over, it used to be a case of at least one criminal is out of the streets. I know people have argued that, you see, somebody is innocent until proved guilty. But there are cases where everybody in society can see the chances of somebody being innocent is very low, considering the meticulous planning that went into the commission of the crime.
Okay, fair enough. Because of time, I just want us to take a brief breather, and then we'll be back for the big conversation. But okay, just briefly, kindly.
The criminal justice system in Kenya, as they have said, is something that we need to have a discussion. We really gave ourselves a new constitution that has given a lot of freedom to the perpetrators and also affecting the victims, because the aspect of fair hearing is a huge discussion that the level now, even police officers, even they are being asked to do their work, but they find even at some stage of fair hearing system and justice system, cases end up being dropped. And you know what? That's why public nowadays have lots of confidence. Nowadays, public, when they find a victim or a perpetrator, you know what public does? Have you seen now an rising lynchings everywhere, banning, you know? It's because members of public are beginning to see the distortion of the criminal justice system. I think Wakili and many of us, we need now to have a discussion. Sometimes we gave ourselves some laws without considering the posterity in it. Some of them were out of reaction. You remember those 10 days of, I mean, the way governments used to, with impunity. We reacted to impunity of governments and failed to know we also exposed ourselves. So we need to have a balance. Even every other time we are enacting laws for Kenyans, don't enact a law that is going to suit your situation, but let us also look at beyond and give ourselves that what is the best. Now it is eating us back now that we can do things, but we have limits that we cannot go beyond there. Because of what? The legal framework that we gave ourselves to do the Constitution of 2010.
Okay, fair enough. Now that takes us to a short breather before we continue. But before we go, there's a story on the front page over the Daily Nation and Kenyans rule New York. Remember, yesterday Sheila Chepkirui did win the New York Marathon, and of course Ellen Obiri came in second before Vivian Cheruiyot came in third in the women's category. A clean sweep for the Kenyan women in New York. And in the men's category, we came second after, of course, Evans Chebet came second to Dutch Abdi Nageye. Kenyans continue to shine in long distance races. On that note, we just take a brief breather. We'll be back. We know the big conversation here in the country surrounding new political dynamics and realignments, including, by the way, the plan by the National Treasury to reintroduce certain sections of the rejected Finance Bill 2024.